I think it's he's out somewhere. Um, if there's nothing, I can give a small uh, update about Jenkins X Ui.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. So like in last time in office hours we talked about DAG, and during the demo we saw that the failed pipelines are still showing green, but which represents success. So basically that is fixed. So the for action item in the last office hours is actually fixed. And apart from that, uh, uh, we also worked like added uh, Jenkins X Ui in the uh, main infra. So now we can see uh, it in. I mean, basically, I'm saying like everyone can see basically how it works, and it can be used to uh, see how Jenkins X is deployed. Kind of. I don't have a demo today, uh, but that's the only update. Like writing the Kubernetes manifest files and fixing the DAG part was the only thing that is changed in Jenkins X UI. Uh, that is one thing. And for supply chain security, I think we have some update that Osama gave on the Slack. Uh, where is it? Yes. Mm, yes. So he created a big issue. I mean, it's a issue which basically tells that.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Sorry to be late. I had a problem with the internet connection, and I had to argue with the company for like 10 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, I just started talking about your issue. If you want to continue, that would be great.
No, you can go, and I can talk after you. So you know.
Yeah, I was just telling everyone that you created an issue where basically every repository now can create SBOMs. So if you want to talk about it, that would be like great
Okay.
because I don't have much to say.
Okay, can someone open share screening, or can we can talk from your screen? We me and Ankit had been like supporting SBOM generation for GX main repository and GX pipeline. So if you go to the documentation, go to the documentation link here.
Yes.
It's yes, this one. So this is explaining how we are enabling the SBOM generation for two types of artifacts. One is zip binaries, which is like which appears on the GitHub release pages of every repository. Okay, and there are two types of there are two approaches we use to release binaries in Jenkins X. One is using GitHub Actions, and one is to use pipelines by GX itself. So this is like dog fooding. Both of them are using Go Releaser for different kind of binaries. We are using Go Releaser, which is supporting SBOM generation by default. You just have to add SBOM's artifacts, this block or this first block on the page. SBOM's artifacts cell archives.
Okay.
No, yes, this one. This block, by adding this to Go Releaser file, it will be possible to generate SBOMs, but before that, it requires safety to be installed, and it's not installed by default with Go Releaser. So, if we are using GitHub Actions in this repo, there are different kinds of repos, like GX, for example. We add this to the release pipeline to the upload binaries script. In the upload binaries .sh script, you just have to add this, and it will be installed. Nothing more than this. And other repositories like GX pipeline, which uses the Tecton the GX pipeline catalog. You just have to add this step. We actually added. Go to the GX3 pipeline catalog. Go to tasks. Go to tasks. And the supply chain security at the end. Go scroll down. Yes, there is supply chain security. Open this task. For now it has 3 steps. We are using 2. One is build and push SBOM. This is one is download Sift. This using the Alpine image and installing the Sift binary in the workspace source itself. So it will be visible to all steps running in the pipeline, in the release pipeline. And you can go back to the documentation. And Go Releaser will take off the rest. So this is basically how we generate SBOMs for upload binaries. We modified the step of releasing artifacts like the tar or tar.gs.gz to include the generated SBOM automatically. So this is going to be edited also. Okay, the other type of artifacts we are generating is container images. When you create a new version of any GX binary, it comes with a container image that's stored in GitHub registry, container registry in Jenkins X. So Rajat, can you please go to, you can go to the organization, Jenkins X organization itself, Jenkins X organization on GitHub. Yes, the organization itself. So go to the packages, please. Okay, so every artifact we are generating is contained in a Docker image. So for example, if you go through GX, get the GX or GX pipeline repository. Yes, this one. So if you go there, you will find a container image with a tag and an SBOM step. This is the tag and the SBOM of it. Generating SBOMs as OCI images is done with a tool named Oras, because it will include it with a tool named Oras. This is mentioned in the documentation. To push, Oras is used to push different kinds of artifacts as an OCI artifact. So we can upload the text artifact or a file.json or file.sbom. Anything can be shipped as a container image, but it cannot be pushed or pulled using Docker. It has to be, if you try to do Docker pull and pull the SBOM itself, it will fail. You have to generate to install Oras locally, and the step is actually in the script. The step for installing Oras is mentioned in the SBOM container.h script. This is the second block here. The second block.
Oh, second.
Yes, this one. Here we are install. No, sorry. So this is using the Oras Docker image. So yes, you can use this and download the SBOM. Just type Oras pull and Oras push to push it, and Oras pull to pull the SBOM. So I can show you some of it. I can share. Yes, because this requires me to share. Thank you for this. So if I did a bit of history to just get the comment. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so with this command, I can pull the SPOM itself. It's ORAS pull. This is from my local repository. It will just take some time, but eventually it should have something like this. Because somehow the file is big. So this is the SPOM for Jenkins X GX latest. It has the Docker image it's generating. It's generated from, or the container image is generated from, and it has the SPOM. So after this, we can have like the script is in the maintainer guide. So we have like with the zip binaries, we have two types of two approaches of releasing. One is with GitHub Actions. Just add this step to your release job of GitHub Actions, and add this to the workflows Jenkins X folder. So for repositories that uses GitHub Actions, you have to add this block and add this file. Here safety is required because we in the same step of generating and pushing SPOMs for container images, we are using SIFT. So this is also required, and this is a command for generating works. Okay, and for repositories that use the GX release pipeline, we also are using GX pipeline catalog. So we are referring to this step, which is just using the ORAS project image. Okay, and it just references it to just with including this step here, build and push SPOM. We are able to release it on the GX pipeline. Maybe I can view it from here. So if I go to the packages and I saw GX pipeline. So this one also has SPOM. Basically, the tag for SPOM will be the version tag and hyphen SPOM at the end. So, and this is a cleaning step because inside this, we are releasing an image star, which is not required for the release. So just include this to clean the pipeline. And this is a git ignore to ignore the image tar and Docker credentials, which is required in this step, build and push SPOM. And just SPOM JSON because we don't want it to be stored in Git. And that's it for the pull request itself. You can see I opened. So all our issues are centered in the GX repository. This is something Ankit told me that you agreed with. So if I go to my issues, I open this one to add support for all GX binaries. There are some like GX helpers and GX logging that are libraries and not binaries. We are still discussing, me and Ankit, we are still discussing whether we should generate SPOMs for it for now, or just enough with binaries, and we can come back to this later. So for binaries, I created these pull requests. So please, if someone can review them. And like I said, checking is not so hard. You can go to the release page of the repository you are reviewing, and if you go to the releases, okay, you can find SPOMs generated for every type of artifact in the release page, and also you have to check to make sure that the PR is right after being merged. You go to the packages of Jenkins X organization and check for its Docker repository, and you can find the tag of the version with SPOM at the end. Okay, so this is how you can verify it's working right. Check that it's pushed on the container registry, and check in the SPOM. Another step, you can just to download it. You can download it from here and check if it's actual SPOM. It will be like this. It will contain an SPTX ID, and check if everything is not empty, by the way. And that's it. And I just was aiming to ask you if someone can review these PRs, because I think Ankit isn't free to review all of this, so some help may be required. And also, if someone else need to do it by himself, you can choose any other repository that's not mentioned in these PRs, and you can make it by your own. That's it. So, any questions?
Yeah. I mean, I would like to I can help you with the review thing, right? But the point is, I am not too
Yes, you are not an
familiar.
owner or maintainer. So because both of us, I think Christopher and
Martin can
yes,
help us. Yeah.
yes, you can do it. I actually Ankit told me he will review it, but I thought it would be take him much time. So if someone want to know how we generate SPOMs, I think reviewing the PR or opening the PR for a new repository by himself will help him to know this, because I want every one of us to have the mindset of how to have the understanding of how to generate SPOMs, because it will help us improving our security. So this is not for me, because I want everyone to contribute on this, because this is important to Jenkins X itself on the long run.
So
Okay.
I can try to create SPOMs for
Yes,
Jenkins
yes,
UI,
of course. Yes.
right? And I'll create some things, and then I'll take a we can review it, right? Then
Yes,
maybe
I can review
we
it in
can.
notes. You can
Yeah.
just start with reading this documentation, and if you don't understand everything clear, just tell me, and if you face any issue, you can tell me and tell Ankit.
Yeah,
So
I'll post something on the dev channel. Yeah.
okay. So
And
anyone else?
Well, Ankit just wrote a half an hour ago. I will be a bit late, but well, this has been more than a bit.
yeah.
Okay.
But oh well.
Christopher would not be here because he is in the CD submit, and he had adopted yesterday, which I defend. I think the videos will be uploaded after the event. So yeah, I mean, we don't have a recording or anything right now. And
Okay, I can stop share screen if no one has questions.
we don't have anything else for the action item. So yes. Yes. Okay. So there's something that we were working on regarding the release version stream. There's a PR. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Enhancements. Yes. So this is a document that Ankit created. And
I think it's easier if you go into the file as Zoe. instead
it's
of
a
the-
it's a draft PR. I don't know how to go into the file.
You
So
just go into the branch.
in the file list, just above that file in the PR's diff.
Wait.
So within the pull request.
Um,
Can you please tell me again?
Yeah, so if you go in there,
Just like go to the
just into
branch.
files changed. There's a way of getting it
Okay.
to show it
Okay.
from there. So there's like a picture of a document to the left of where it says viewed, just above where your mouse is. No, over to the right, left a bit, down a bit. It's like a document icon to the right of that one.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
And now it becomes a readable markdown.
So. Yes. So we had few questions that we would like to discuss, and since Ankit is not here, I don't have much idea, but we were actually trying to see how other projects like Kubernetes, Argo, Tekton does these things, and based on how we can manage things, we would like to implement some of the things. So either you guys can comment on in the PR. If Ankit joins and we have a talk, then you can tell him directly.
So here you are just discussing how many versions.
Yes.
What you saying about how many versions of what should we support? Like, should we support the backward compatibility of Jenkins X, right? Like Jenkins X,
Yes.
if we are in Jenkins GX version
Yes.
1 support.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, basically it says so just like Golang. Golang supports 2 versions, right? And once the 3rd version came out, like the new version comes out, they will stop supporting the 3rd version, basically. Okay, so we were discussing so Golang does Golang supports 2 recent versions, but I think Kubernetes supports more than 2, and same goes for Tekton, I think. So, but again, it takes a lot of development time to support many versions. So, how many versions should we support? That was the question. And then the thing was what should be the release cadence? We would like to release every quarterly, but
there is a lot of I think there is a lot of bugs and issues that needs to be fixed with
Yes.
with Jenkins X. So does this release cadence include minor issues or minor upgrades, or it's just for adding a new module or adding critical mistakes, fixing critical bugs?
So we were planning that let's say we release a version, okay, let's say Jenkins X4, okay, and then
I think I just lost your audio, Rajat.
I think it can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear you again?
Yes.
Yes. Now we can hear you again.
Okay, sorry. Right. What I was saying is basically that we would release, let's say we release a new version of Jenkins X, that is Jenkins X 4.1.0. Okay, and in this, like in the current quarter, we would release its minor updates. That would be 4.1.1, 4.1.2, like that. And after the quarter, the new version would be 4.2.0. So in the next quarter, we would update 4.2.0 instead of maintaining 4.1.0. But again, that depends on how many version we would like to support. Because if we are supporting two versions, then supporting 4.1 and 4.2 makes sense. Yeah.
I guess one question is what's the overhead of supporting one of these versions?
So basically, like, your question is like, what's the meaning of supporting these versions?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I understand from supporting is basically that we are like fixing patches, like fixing bugs in that version, and we're still trying to make sure that that version supports uh, things that, like, other tools and all those things that people use. Like, so it's we still try to fix things around it with Terraform or in UI, things like that. Like if let's say if we support the only version, like the latest version, right? Then once the latest version comes out, then we would fix its bugs, right? But the people who are still using 4.1 or the previous version would still face those bugs, and those bugs will not be fixed by Jenkins X. That's what I understand by saying support, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, these all the things are like I was in the discussions, but still very new to these things. So I'm still, maybe I'm not the best person you want to talk about. I mean, talk about these things.
I have a quick question if everyone's willing to listen. Maybe I missed this, but are we going to support an LTS? I mean, I'm reading here we are, and I'm assuming what we would want to do is we would want an LTS version that is going to be like an older version, and then all the new stuff goes into the release, just like in that last tag or bullet point that we have here. But as far as how many LTSs we should support, I would say we should only really support, like, I don't know, an LTS that might match a Kubernetes version, unless there's a big change that's occurring in the Kubernetes, because usually these big changes only occur because of Kubernetes have deprecated certain APIs and stuff like that, or have changed from beta to, version 1 or whatever it is, right?
So I have a different perspective. So from a consumer of Jenkins X point of view, we can either follow the main version stream, which basically means daily changes, which in a production system isn't really viable. What we had when there was a relatively regular LTS was not falling hugely behind the leading edge of what's going on with Jenkins X. So if you look at what sits in that version stream, we've got the Jenkins X tool versions, we've got versions of all of the kind of main dependent Helm charts. So if we look at things like Cert Manager, those are all moving at their own cadences. And obviously the Jenkins X project is moving at its own cadence. So it's really something between sitting at the leading edge and waiting for a new Kubernetes release, which is kind of longer than we want to be maintaining things. So it's what I see as an LTS is something that isn't changing at the development cadence, but is changing at a relatively paceful manner. So if we look at, for example, the Jenkins project from CloudBees, they have a weekly release and then they have an LTS that changes about once a quarter. I think realistically, an LTS for Jenkins X would need to be quarterly at the longest, possibly even monthly. But I'm not sure that there needs to be support of many versions of that, given that you as a consumer have a choice to either follow the version stream and have it auto update, or pin it to a particular one and not update it.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
In my view, it's really about maintaining the tool set and the dependencies at a relatively current version, but not the latest, on a regular basis without having to go and do that by hand. And what we would tend to do is we have a canary cluster that just follows whatever the version stream that we're on is and auto updates it. And then we have others that we leave on it creates the pull request, and we can choose whether to apply it once we've observed there are no problems with the canary cluster. But that's kind of hard to do if it's daily. It's much easier to do if it's monthly.
So I think these are the exact things Ankit talked about, like quarterly release. Okay, and then supporting the LTS for 6 months. That is basically supporting 2 versions, and then really patch releases every month. So I think that is basically what Andy just said.
Yeah, but I think the tricky bit with that, if you're then patching the LTSs on a monthly basis, but you're supporting them for 6 months, is that you end up with 2 LTSs plus 3 sets of patches each as the currently supported choices from a consumer point of view as to where to be. I would probably rather see it be a LTS release every month, and it's really only the latest one is supported, as in it will get another patch.
Okay, so the new patch would be the LTS, and that is the only one that is supported, right?
Yeah, I mean, from a consumer point of view, because of the way the LTS works, I think that would be easier to manage than having to track which LTS base and which patch version are we on, and how does it get updated to the next one. But
then let's say if some project still needs some times to update, right? So that they have the older version, which is not supported yet, or like now. So like that would that be fine? I mean, just asking.
I mean, from our point of view, we're currently running clusters based on the last LTS release, which was now a year ago. And then what we've done is we've done targeted pinned updates of some packages where we've needed them. So for example, we pin update the JX boot resources chart so that we can get a newer version of the JX binary running pipelines. We pulled out the Lighthouse pipeline into our own pipelines catalog so that we can use the latest JX version in our pull request and release pipelines. We've got cert manager pinned to a newer version than is in the LTS. So what we're effectively doing is patching it ourselves because there hasn't been something. It would be preferable to us if every month there's a new, okay, these other projects have moved forward, it's a non-breaking change, or if there's going to be a breaking change, it is communicated beforehand. So like minor updates of non-Jenkins X projects that we rely on, and then newer versions of the Jenkins X tools
So
Going in
Sorry,
every month would be
if you
easier.
don't-
for us to manage.
if you don't mind me interrupting, only because maybe we shouldn't be using the term LTS in this case. Because it almost sounds like we should do a stable and a nightly.
That, yeah, terminology wise, that would also work.
Right? Because at least that's how it sounds like to me. And then at least with stable, all it means is that it's been tested to work and that we're guaranteeing it that when it gets updated, it should work. There may be edge cases, of course, but then that's where patches will come in for the stable. While nightly would just be whoever's updating and gets updated, right?
Yeah. No, I think terminology wise, that probably does fit it better.
Except it shouldn't be nightly because it's not nightly.
No, sure. Let's not say nightly. Let's just say dev branch or moving target. I don't know. There's so many different terminologies we can use, right?
Yes, VS Code have their insiders release, which is basically you get the latest version of whatever you're given, and then they have the
It's
stable.
just latest or stable.
Yeah, latest or stable would work.
Because I don't know about you guys, but when I run the cluster with my with Jenkins X and whatnot, I don't have a problem updating because security is great for me, like it's important. And usually updates mean bugs have been patched and should be less security bugs. I just don't like it when I do an upgrade and it just randomly from 1 minute to the next, I could get different versions. Because then that also makes it hard to track. So if we just had 2 release streams, one is, like I just said, one that could any minute you update, you could get a new release, that's fine. But if we have ones that are just going to update every couple of weeks or something, and that those have been tested, that makes me a little bit more comfortable to update in that cadence. Right?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it won't, yeah, as it is now, it won't be much difference because everything is tested. It's just that the tests are not as complete as would want to. And as well, basically, it have never been, but it's it has been better, I suppose, when Cloudbeast paid for more stuff. But yeah,
what you're saying is testing in the sense of unit testing or just some, quick overlook. But I'm saying is we do releases like the nightly, and again, I'm using the term nightly just because it's easy for me to say. We do the nightly, but then the team here right now, I'm assuming, are probably going to be more likely using that stream. When we all go, hey, everything seems to be okay up to this point, let's then release a stable, and then we just do one more run of it just to make sure everything's okay.
Yes. Well, so yeah, so as like Martin said, they used to test in different cloud providers, which we don't test now. So what I had in mind was a release candidate.
Okay.
So before we say something is stable, we start with a release candidate, which you can test or somebody can test, and we do like cherry picking from the trunk into like the release branch when we create a release candidate. That way we don't like, say for example, we do external say we use like cert manager 1.8.5 or something, and turns out it's broken and we have to go back. Then it's easier to make those like rollbacks rather than doing other things. And we can also test it in like isolation. We don't have to test the entire like master branch in different say like cloud. I mean, say we have to test it in Amazon or like Azure. It's easier to test the release candidate than just take the master, because the master is moving fast, like really fast. So plus companies move a bit slow, which I mean, which means that it's probably might like it might make sense to have different long-term release like branches. So yeah. But I'm still
well, I think we're gonna want to avoid that. been in enough development teams that if you have long-lived branches, you run into a lot of other problems with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like trunk based, right? So we don't merge the release branch into the master branch. I mean, I am fine if you just want to have one release branch, but like all I have seen is Helm or like Kubernetes or Tecton, they have multiple like branches that they maintain, and they keep on making patch like updates to those like branches. So that was the idea. But if, I mean, we can try with something like simpler and just maintain one and see how that goes, and if we need to make any change, we can make it a bit more complex. Does that sound okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. I will like update it a bit. So yeah, but I was thinking that maybe we do LTS every 3 months, 6 months. What do people think? We can do a monthly, which is what we had.
I mean, the big point is this, that when it's testing, I mean, if we're going to have an LTS and say, yes, we only support the latest, then at least we should also support upgrading from one LTS to the next. And we don't have tests like that today.
Right.
And you don't want to have too many of those combinations. If you look at, for example, Istio, they are very clear that we don't support other than upgrading from one version to the next. If you do a bigger jump, we don't know. It might work, it might not. We have not tested it.
Right. So that's why we create, like release, like candidates, which we have to test. We do that, like manually. So you have, like a Kubernetes cluster, for example. I have one, so we have to do.
Yeah, but that's not enough. We do need to automatically test upgrades.
In the future, yes, but we need to do something now, right? Which is
well, okay. I actually just kind of disagree that but yeah.
I mean, like we have to start from somewhere.
Well, I don't think we could. I don't think we can release LTS now because we don't have the testing for it. It's
yeah, that was one of the things I mentioned in the past. That unless our testing improves, it's hard to it's hard to get an LTS. But I want to give it a try and see if we can come out with a plan for even like manual testing. Maybe we can ask people in like like CloudBees. I can ask Dean because he was a manager at that point, and he told me that they used to test I guess some kind of like manual testing across different like cloud providers. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, testing is important for like this. Like we can call it we can call it like a LTS, but it's like, is it like, what exactly is different between it and the rapid release channel? So
and I think that's where changing the terminology maybe would help. In the concept of like latest or stable is probably more descriptive of what's really going on.
Yeah,
but I think that the key thing from the point of view of being able to do the kind of batteries included running of Kubernetes clusters with Jenkins X, having a version stream that updates regularly enough that you're not having to hand tune the version of everything, but behind the trailing edge enough that you're not getting a new version on a daily basis, and some of them are reversions because bugs have been found.
Right.
So, I'd be quite comfortable if the Jenkins X tools were a month or two behind the latest.
Yeah.
And what we're picking up is we're making sure that we're in supported versions of the Helm charts that are included there with versions against them.
Yes, so that's why I was thinking to have, so you have your main branch or like master branch, and then you create a release branch which does not change, because at least in like the beginning, we can just, like cherry pick changes. We don't have to get all of the changes, right? Like I don't have to put all of the changes from main into the release branch. I only get a few of them. We test it. If they don't work, we can always, like revert it, but that becomes a release candidate one, which maybe we can test a bit more. And then we release, like a stable version, LTS1 or LTS2 or whatever, so that was kind of what I had in mind. It's still something that I'm thinking about, like, like Martin said, testing is the hard part, but I think we can start with some, like manual testing, see how it goes, see and, improve it over time.
So that makes sense. I guess my question is, if you're doing it that way, what's the mechanism for updating the versions through the version stream? Because currently it's working through KPT.
Yes, so
Literally,
in
we
like kept, instead of
make-
saying that the branch is, like master, you would say the branch is some, like release branch, which like corresponds to one of, like the LTS. So every LTS gets its own, like release branch. So-
Right. So then how do I automatically have my cluster go to the next LTS?
So when you, I guess we can always change the JX GitOps, like upgrade to say minus, like version, and then you just say LTS.2 or something, and you can always go to the next version.
Because
I need to think about it a bit more.
yeah, I mean the current mechanics are that there's a repo for the kind of leading edge, and then there's a different repo for the LTS,
Right.
which means you just point at a repo and it updates.
Yeah, the problem with that is, say, I have a version. So what happens is every time we get we get a new commit in the normal, like version stream. If it passes the tests, then we promote that to the LTS, like version stream automatically. Of course, we don't do enough tests, and so all of those PRs, like pile up. So if I merge one of the other PRs, will it take, like, it might take changes, like, unintended changes from the regular version stream into the normal one, and that might break things. That was
Okay.
what.
So it's the current update mechanism for the existing LTS repo that's really the risk factor here.
Yeah. So I personally think we should like like I said, like if you just create a release branch in the normal, like version stream, that way, and we start doing some, like manual stuff, or I know, like Kubernetes can do, I mean, like in like Prow, they just do / like cherry pick 1.25.6, and it just takes that commit and puts it into the release branch. And since we use, like Lighthouse, it might be like either we have that, or we can just add that plug into Lighthouse, and then we can start doing it, like similar way. But yes, we have to do a lot of manual testing. That is it. Like at this point, we don't have the infrastructure to automate some of these for like LTS tests. It's just like LTS means nothing at this point. So unless we do manual tests and we don't upgrade them that often, right? Like you just start with a release candidate where you're like, okay, I'm not going to make any changes unless there is like it just breaks. You just keep on doing your, like changes. You are not going to update the versions of JX, or you're not going to upgrade the versions of the Helm charts. It's all locked unless you find a bug, and that bug is fixed in some other new version. You only, like cherry pick that. So it seems like, I mean, it does sound like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work, but yeah, at this point, I think that might be one way to make it stable enough for for like people to be serious about Jenkins X, because it's like the way we release it's not, you know, like scalable for bigger companies. It's just like, and we just don't have the testing infrastructure, and I don't know when we can get to that stage. So and I could be wrong. So um we yeah, I will update that PR a bit more, but
Yeah.
that is what I had in mind.
Yeah, I'll have a proper read through of it because I very much scanned it just as I was joining. And obviously the discussion we've had has added extra information.
Okay.
And put some comments on it. Probably it's going to be the week after next because I'm going to be on vacation for a week without access to the internet.
That is fine, because that gives me also a bit of time to go over it, and maybe me and, you know, like Martin can you know, like clean it up a bit.
Cool. Sounds good. Right, unfortunately, I need to bounce because I have a company meeting. It's just starting.
Yes, I had one, so I was late.
Yeah, but thanks for putting this together because I think it's a really good start towards us getting somewhere.
Yeah. We can go.
Bye.
Bye. I'll leave us. Well,
So you're still here, Martin?
yeah,
Okay.
but that won't be many seconds.
Okay, so like maybe we can work on this, you know, like together. Let me clean it up a bit. I will. So I will ask you for some, you know, like if you can take a look at it tomorrow, or I will, you know, like ping you. I will like you.
Oh, okay, sure. But I mean, the thing is, I mean, I can't see myself putting. Okay, yeah, sure, I can have a look at it. But I think my general comment will be that manual work.
Yes,
I don't have time for that. Period.
I know. But I mean, I can start, you know, like doing it. We can ask maybe Roger and Osama to do it for some time, and then we can start, you know, like automating it. But I just want us to go somewhere where it's a bit more, you know, like stable, like at least have a process. And of course, it may not be right, and we can improve on that. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.